My computer's count. Thank you so much for that. I think we like to start off the meeting with a roll call to see who's present for this meeting or this deliberation. Luis?
Yes, I'll start with the commissioners here in the room. Commissioner Ely. Member. I'm sorry, Member Ely.
Present.
Member Garcia
Here.
and Chair Sweeney.
Present.
All right, and on the platform, Member Hunker.
I am present.
There he is.
Thank you. Member Bitzer.
I'm here as well.
Thank you. We have a quorum present, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Luis. With that, we have before us in what was published a proposed agenda. May I have a motion so we can begin discussion about the agenda? Yes, Member Garcia.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to strike item 3 off the agenda, and we will just be doing the deliberation today.
Thank you, Member Garcia.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Bitzer. So now that we have a motion on the floor and a second, are there any discussions or further revisions to the motion or the agenda? Anybody? If not, Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on Member Garcia's motion to approve the agenda with striking item number 3, which is approval of October 24, 2025 meeting minutes, and just having the deliberation today?
Okay. Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Member Ely,
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Member Hunker.
Yes.
Say it again.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Sweeney.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. With that, approval of today's agenda, we will go from agenda item number 2 now to the amended next item, which is EIB 24-49R deliberation in the matter of Regional Haze State Implementation Plan revision for the second planning period and proposed companion rule 20.2.68 NMAC Regional Haze requirements. With that, I just wanted to make sure with our legal counsel and just note that we have our legal counsel here present, as well as our hearing officer for this item. And just want to check with them. Is there anything that we need to consider or we want to talk about prior to getting into the meat of our discussion today?
Madam Chair, no, I don't think so.
All right. Let's see. Hold on one second.
Mr. Ugarte, would it be wise for the board to take up the motion to reopen the record to provide Sir rebuttal before they begin deliberating on the provisions of the rule, proposed rule?
Madam Hearing Officer, I think you're correct.
Okay, thank you. I did submit, I believe it was forwarded to the board, the recommendation on that motion. Mr. Ugarte may have additional counsel for you if you seek it.
Yes, Mr. Legal Counsel Ugarte, do you have any additional information for the board?
Madam Chair, no, I think as we've come to expect, our Madam Hearing Officer did an excellent job here. So I'm ready for questions if you have them. But otherwise, I think you have. I don't think we need anything else.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Ugarte. Just checking with Member Hunker, Member Bitzer online, do you have a copy of the document that we were just referring to? I see a thumbs up from Member Bitzer. Member Hunker, yes. Do you have any further discussion or concerns or discussion about the document? Fellow board members, Member Hunker, Member Bitzer, or even here in the room, Member Garcia or Member Ely? And just for folks on the line, it was concerning a recommendation, post-hearing motion to strike or alternatively to serve rebut. It was on October 15th. EPNG filed a motion to strike or serve rebut some portions of the closing arguments filed by NMED and the conservation groups. So that's what we're discussing today. And I just want to double check with Mr. Lopez and Ms. Jones that this is on the docket. Is that correct? That's correct. They affirmed, yes, that's correct. It is on the docket for those that are on the platform. If you don't have a copy of it, it is accessible on the docket. So with that, Mr. Agarte, just reconfirming also with fellow board members, no further discussions needed on this motion? Is that correct?
Well, Madam Chair, I think the board should take a vote on deciding whether to grant or strike or deny the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Ugarte. With that, fellow board members, if you can, please review the document, and I'd be open to any initial motion or further discussion. And we'll just take a minute for board members to review the document and gather their thoughts. And if you have any questions, we have our legal counsel here, and as well as Madam Hearing Officer Orth. Does anybody have any motion? Yes, Member Honker.
I will take a crack at one. I would move that the board deny the October 15th post-hearing motion by El Paso Natural Gas Company to strike or alternatively to serve rebut.
Thank you, Member Honker, for your motion. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, it was received November 14th.
Okay. Member Hunker, it was received on November 14th. Would you like to amend your motion?
Yes, I will amend my motion to propose that the board deny the motion from El Paso Natural Gas received on November 14th.
Thank you, Member Hunker. Is there a second?
I would second the motion.
Thank you, Member Garcia, for your second. With that, we can, yes.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Member Hunker was correct. I was wrong. So
Okay,
it is October 15th. I'm sorry.
okay, thank you.
Now, I would amend my motion back to my original motion. David.
Thank you, Member Hunker. And I, just for clarification, and this is shown on the docket as well, there was a couple of different amendment or revisions of this series of documents. So that's why we're trying to make sure we got the date right. But it is to your updated motion, Member Hunker. Appreciate that. You are correct.
And I second that revised motion.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Appreciate that. With that, is there any discussion that board members have regarding this, questions? Or, yes, Member Bitzer.
Perhaps this is for our hearing officer, because it looked like either we or the hearing officer could have acted on this, and she opted not to. Is there she want to weigh in on why that she decided to not follow up on their objection?
Oh, so Member Bitzer, once I have completed the evidentiary record, I generally take the position that decision-making is transferred to the board at that point. This would have been a reopening or a striking in the nature of a post-hearing motion. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the board who would have decision-making authority on a post-hearing motion.
Do you have any recommendation about what our decision should be?
That was the document that we were all talking about a few minutes ago. I prepared, it's like a 4-page recommendation on the motion addressing each of the bases.
And for clarification, Madam Hearing Officer, that's on the docket as well?
It is, it's on the docket. I don't remember the date of it.
That one's
November 14th.
That one's November 14th.
Okay.
Yes. And so if that's helpful, Member Bitzer, that information's on the docket webpage. All right, with that additional information, is there any other questions board members have? Or comments, discussion in regards to this item and the motion on the floor? If, just want to double check, is people ready to vote on the motion? All right. With that, I don't see any further discussion or questions. Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on Member Hunker's motion?
Yes.
And Member Garcia's second.
Okay, Member Ely, how do you vote on the motion?
yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweden,
Yes.
and Member Bitzer.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Member Hunker,
I vote yes.
thank you. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Appreciate that. All right. Is there any other items we need to take up prior to getting started? Mr. Ugarte?
I don't think so, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And looking to our fellow board members, any other items you want to talk about? Member Ely, no, you good? Okay, all right. So we can, now that that matter's been addressed, you can now jump into discussion. And also looking to fellow board members, your thoughts on how you want to jump through this? Yes, Member Ely.
Madam Chair, I would suggest we go through the hearing officer's points, address each point. And then I think that'll make it easier. If we come to conclusions on each of those points, it'll make it easier to go through the rule and consider changes or no changes as necessary.
Thank you, Member Ely. Is that sound like a good plan? To see some thumbs up? All right,
I agree.
thank you.
And if I could just interject, I'd just like to thank Hearing Officer Orth for the summary. It made it very, very easy to focus on the issues. So thanks for that.
Yes, and I echo that, Madam Hearing Officer, appreciate your time. I know it was a busy fall with our board and other items on the state's plate. So I appreciate your time in getting us this hearing officer's report.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, I'm going to go to page 2 of the hearing officer report if folks want to follow along. And the first question, as we talked about, is going through these questions. The first one, as part of our deliberations, is the draft SIPR and proposed rule more stringent than federal law? And if so, have the necessary requirements in the New Mexico Air Quality Control Act been met? And our Madam Hearing Officer, provided some summaries of different perspectives on that and some from the parties. So I just want to open it up to the board and see if anybody wants to jump in and start discussing some of those points. Madam, Member Ely?
Right, so the question, should the EIB consider EPA's new presumption that reasonable progress for this period is already being made? And industry's argument is that because each of the Class 1 areas, including Salt Creek with new modeling, are now underneath the URP, that reasonable progress is being made. The department says no, as well as the conservation groups. They argue that the Uniform Rate of Progress, URP, is not a safe harbor, that this is, and I agree with that. The Clean Air Act and the Regional Haze Rule has been interpreted for years to not allow a safe harbor. I'd also note that the conservation groups stated that the current EPA interpretation is being legally challenged. That interpretation by EPA was released in April of this last year. So I see that as unsettled law. The federal landscape is continually changing, especially this year, as far as legal interpretation. And so to me, it doesn't make sense to consider the April policy in this rulemaking. I would note, in fact, in August of this year, even the EPA stated that they will still review the state's determination on whether additional control measures are necessary to make reasonable progress. NMED cannot and should not ignore the 4-factor analysis that led to enforceable compliance strategies that are necessary to make reasonable progress. That is the legal requirement, and they followed that. So the proposed rule I see is consistent with federal law and therefore is no more stringent than federal law. And because of that, the board and the department do not need to make a finding that the proposed rule is more protective of public health and the environment should we adopt it.
Thank you, Member Ely. Is there any other comments from board members? Yes, Member Hunker.
I agree with Member Ely. Interpretations can come and go, but the law and the rules are still there. And there are many years of precedence. And I agree with Member Ely's assessment on this issue.
Thank you, Member Hunker. Member Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also agree with that assessment in that the April policy statement that came out is a policy versus what the EPA Federal Register, and I could quote that it says, in response to comments suggesting that the URP should be considered a safe harbor that relieves states of any obligation to consider the four statutory factors, the EPA explained that the URP was not intended to be such a safe harbor. So that's right out of the Federal Register. So I think I agree with that argument completely. So considering that it's EPA directive, then NMED is following EPA and not doing anything more stringent.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Is there any other comments? With that, I don't see any other discussions. I don't have anything more to add than what's been shared. Is there, Mr. Ugarte, would we just do a vote on just to have it on record what our response would be? I know it's tied to the overall, or how would a motion in regards to our discussion now, I guess, be framed?
Madam Chair, I think one option, that's certainly an option, and I think a motion could follow the question that was posed. And it looks like, I mean, depending on who proposed the motion, really just ask, that could be the question that's considered. I would just point out here that at the end of the paragraph or the section, there's that question that remains, the board chooses to indulge. It just makes something that you need to consider, considering how you vote. Does that make sense?
Yes, Mr. Ugarte, did you have a comment, Member Ely?
I tried to address that specific question in the way I phrased my comments in stating that the question is, should the board consider EPA's new presumption that reasonable progress for this period is already being made, which is the last sentence in the hearing officer's report for that first point. So yes, I agree with you that that should be the premise for how we phrase any motion that might be made.
Thank you for that clarification, Member Ely. And is there a board member that would like to propose a motion? Member Ely?
I can try.
Okay.
So I move that the board not consider EPA's new presumption that reasonable progress for this period is already being made, and therefore the proposed rule is no more stringent than federal law.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Bitzer, for your second. As I look to our board members, any further clarification or discussion regarding Member Ely's motion? Yes, Member Honker.
I just recalled during the many years I worked for EPA, I would often hear back from states or from the regulated community that something was in a policy document, it was not in the rules, and therefore they didn't have to follow it. So I'm seeing this as kind of a parallel situation. So that's my only comment.
Thank you for that. Member Honker, is there any other discussion? If not, Mr. Lopez, would you do a roll call vote on Member Ely's motion and Member Bitzer's second?
Yes. Member Ely,
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
and Member Bitzer,
Yes.
and Member Honker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Appreciate that. So we'll go on to page 3, question number 2. In preparing the draft SIPR, should NMED have fully accounted for the emission reductions that will result from the ozone precursor rule adopted in 2022? And similar, there's some testimony here quoted by the hearing officer's report. And just wanting to look to the fellow board members, is there any comments that you have in regards to this question? Yes, Member Garcia.
Yes, thank you. I do recall there was testimony from NMED that they did take into account the various measures that were taken by the affected regulated community for this rule to comport with the ozone precursor rule. So they did take it into account.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Member Ely?
Yeah, and I believe Mr. Miller also stated that it was taken into account when industry brought it forward to them to be considered. And he gave the example of DCP and how DCP installed NOx controls at 3 of their facilities, and NMED accepted this as being compliant with the regional haze rule.
Thank you for that, Member Ely. And Member Bitzer, did you have your hand up?
I did. I was just wondering whose responsibility it would have been at that point to either look or have it brought to their attention. Is it the state's? Is it not the state's responsibility to do the assessment rather than industry's duty to figure out everything and flag it for them, and they don't have to notice it if it didn't get flagged for them? Is that how I'm interpreting that correctly?
Go ahead, Member Ely.
If I may. So under the process for the regional haze rule requires a lot of back and forth between the department and industry. And so when the department, proposes certain facilities with certain pieces of equipment to come under the umbrella of regional haze, they ask for industry's input, and industry will provide them with that input, and then they provide comment on it. So there is a lot of back and forth. And so, I do believe in this case it is up to industry to come to the department and say, hey, we have these NOx reductions, just like DCP did, related to ozone precursor. Is that not adequate for the regional haze rule? And then the department could opine on that. So considering the back and forth, I do believe that the department did a great job of talking with industry, and industry needed to uphold their end and explain the emission reductions that they are achieving with ozone precursor and how it might apply to regional haze.
So if they failed to get all that in front of the department, it's on them. That's what I'm hearing, not on the department to taken it into consideration anyway.
Yes, for that point and others, the department needs to hear from industry about how they can comply or aren't complying and provide comment on any proposed limits that the department is putting in front of them.
Thank you for that question, Member Bitzer, and that discussion, and Member Ely, for your insight and your thoughts. Is there any other comments? Member Garcia?
Yes, just to further clarify, I believe the department gave industry the opportunity first to go through the 4-factor assessment. And I can't imagine why they wouldn't include equipment that they had that would reduce emissions. Any equipment they had, anything to reduce emissions, you would think they would include. And if they didn't, I don't know why they wouldn't. But so they had an opportunity to supply the information. So yes, I guess I agree that it's incumbent on the regulated community to supply that information.
Yes, Member Ely?
And I just want to make one more point that the ozone precursor rule is different from the regional haze rule. The regional haze rule required all sources, certain types of sources to make emission reductions, NOx, VOCs, regardless of their proximity to a Class 1 area. And so, you could have an industry that is making emission reductions that wouldn't come into this program because they don't meet the Q over D and they don't have that proximity to a Class 1 area. So I think that distinction should come into play here as well.
Thank you for that, Member Ely. Is there any other discussion on this question number 2? If there's no further discussion, I don't have anything to add either. I think it's been a great discussion, and thank you to the fellow board members for that discussion and that clarification. Is there a member that would like to propose a motion? Yes, Member Honker.
I'll take a stab at it. Regarding issue 2 in the hearing officer's report, I move that the board finds that NMED adequately accounted for emission reductions resulting from the ozone precursor rule in their SIP and proposed regional haze rule.
Oh, can you repeat that for our court reporter here?
Sorry. Yes. I would move that with respect to issue 2 in the hearing officer's report, the board finds that NMED adequately accounted for emission reductions that will result from the ozone precursor rule.
Thank you, Member Hunker. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Ely. Is there any more discussion, clarification? Also double checking with our legal counsel. Does that seem like a legally sound motion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. If no further discussion, Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on Member Hunker's motion?
Yes. Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
Member Bitzer?
I vote yes.
And Member Hunker?
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, and thank you, board, for that discussion and that on question number 2. So with that, we will go on to still on page number 3, question number 3. Does the draft SI PR improperly require the installation of emission controls at enterprise facilities. Again, thank you to Madam Hearing Officer for putting in some of the references from the record and testimony and submittals. We have a couple of paragraphs and text to reference for our discussion on this question. With that, I'll look to the board members. Member Garcia.
Yes, I just have a question. In answering this, would we also address the proposed rule change that was proposed by Enterprise at the same time?
At the same time, what are your thoughts, fellow board members? Member Ely.
I would say no, that we have a full discussion about whether controls are required at all. And then potentially, I mean, there's a question down below that the hearing officer posed on site-wide emissions. And maybe we have the discussion when we go over that point.
Thank you, Member Ely. Are you good with that, Member
Yeah,
Garcia?
that's fine, yeah.
Okay. Is there any comments regarding this question? You want to highlight, talk about? Member Garcia.
I guess I'll make the initial comment that one of the things that NMED testified repeatedly, I think, was that they didn't require installation of any particular type of equipment. They required that the regulated community meet certain emission standards, and how they go about doing that is up to them. So.
Thank you for that, Member Garcia and Member Ely.
If I may. So I want to first address the issue at Blanco, C&D, Enterprises Blanco. There was a lot of discussion about space and about the inability to put an SCR at that facility because the space wasn't adequate. They also had some concerns about power loss, electricity demand there. I'm not convinced that controls should not be put on at Blanco. I'm just talking about Blanco, not the other facilities. I don't think they provided adequate evidence refuting that they couldn't do this. Now, Enterprise notes that they did not have a lot of time to put together a cost estimate. So last year, the department published the draft SIP, and that is when Enterprise first learned that they were being asked to put on emissions that were implied that SCR needed to be put on Blanco. And the hearing was going to be set for the next month. I do know, though, that Enterprise put in an emergency motion to delay the hearing. And one of the reasons for that was to look at controls that might be installed, and that the hearing officer granted that delay. And in fact, the hearing officer granted even more time than was proposed in the emergency motion filed by Enterprise. So they did get more time to consider those controls. It does take a while to do that kind of engineering analysis to determine what the costs and how the engineering would work, but they did have more time to do it. I also note that the estimates, had they submitted them in March, which would have been late and outside the public review process, but it could have been available for the board to consider, and that wasn't done in this case. So as far as the issue of should that facility have controls, I believe it should have controls, and I understand their cost implications. On the issue of windrows and visibility impacts from NOx reductions, I don't find their use of the windrows and visibility impacts compelling. I think the department did a good job explaining why these are regional pollutants. And then also on their argument regarding the impact of smaller emission reductions for NOx on Mesa Verde, they compare phase 1 implementation with phase 2 implementation, which is not a fair comparison in the regional Haze world. We are in the second implementation period, not the first. And so I believe the department did a good job there explaining that even though the emission reductions for NOx are much less than they were in phase 1 on an individual basis, that cumulative, they matter quite a bit. So that's my input, that I'm not convinced by the windrows argument or the visibility impacts on individual controls. I am concerned a little bit about the timing for Enterprise, but I do believe they need controls on that facility.
Thank you, Member Ely.
That's a mouthful, I'm sorry.
No, that was good information. And I do see a lot of what you referred to as documented in our in testimony, both verbal and written. So I appreciate those highlights as we continue to discuss this question.
Madam Chair, should we talk about, in this point 3, should we talk about the individual facilities for Enterprise one at a time, and then before we make a motion on them one at a time, or consider them all together?
Let's talk about them all together now, and then see if the board would like to then do separate motions or a combined motion after a full discussion under question number 3. So I know we've focused initially on Blanco C and D in this discussion that we've had. I don't know if there's any further discussion on Blanco C and D. Anything? Member Garcia.
Thank you. I think the Enterprise brings up the idea that it's economically infeasible, and the hearing officer suggests that that is something to look at. So considering in our statute, we do need to look at economic feasibility. Perhaps we should cross that T and dot that I just to be clear about that point.
Thank you, Member Garcia. I do see that. And I recall the discussion too by Enterprise about the feasibility, in particular, the economic side of it. And so I think it is prudent to discuss that and what board members think based upon the written as well as the verbal testimony in all. Yes, Member Ely?
I might note that on the issue of space limitation, NMED did include a 10% adjustment factor to address the increased cost of building modifications. And they state in their submittal that they did so because Enterprise did not provide a cost estimate. So they did the best they could using the SCR tool to include a 10% adjustment factor.
Thank you for that, Member Ely. Any other discussion from the board members? Yes, Member Garcia.
Thank you for pointing that out, Member Ely. I do recall that, and I remember that it struck me that 10% was not very much to consider what they would have to do there. However, you know, regardless of whether 10% was enough or 20% or 25, it's a question of whether it's economically feasible. I guess I would weigh in that it is economically feasible to make the changes that are necessary to comply with the rule.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Is there any other comments to that? Discussion? Oops. So with that comment, yes,
I wonder if we should move to South Carlsbad?
yes, you read my mind, Member Ely. Let's move to the next, to the one in the south. Where's my? The South Carlsbad facility.
Yeah.
Member Ely, do you have some comments?
Yeah, so South Carlsbad compressor is located in San Juan County. And it, some of the same arguments that Enterprise made for Blanco as well as Chaco, they make for South Carlsbad. Once again, they use the windrose argument, which I don't believe is credible. And they also note that the cost threshold of $10,000 per ton was not reasonable. NMED, I think, made a good argument that and provide good justification for that threshold. So I believe it is credible. I believe the cost threshold does work. I do know that in the earlier SIP, the department had initially placed SCR on those compressors and decided to back off of that and are now proposing the dry low NOx combustion, which does come in under their $10,000 per ton threshold, though Trinity disputes that. So anyways, I do believe South Carlsbad needs controls, and I do believe that the controls or the emission limits based on the controls suggested are reasonable and should be applied.
Thank you, Member Ely. Comments, questions, discussion? Any questions, further discussion on Carlsbad? I appreciate that, Member Ely. I see the references and also acknowledge that in the documents, in particular in NMAD's argument evidence, in their submittal is in alignment with your summary comments on the South Carlsbad and NMAD's response and final submittal. Is there any discussion? Member Bitzer, were you raising your hand? Sorry if I missed you. All right. Do you want to go on to Chaco?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for Chaco, Enterprise also describes how the cost analysis was flawed. And they note that NMED did not use Trinity site-specific analysis, but relied on DCP's Lynham Ranch for assessing low emission control system at Chaco. Also noted the difference in elevations at those two sites, which would affect the emissions. I do believe the department has a huge amount of flexibility and discretion in how they do these analysis. They simply, not simply, I mean, they need to explain it and they need to work with industry on it. And I believe that they have, this is another case where the initial report, SIP report, included SCR on 3 compressors, and they decided to actually take those out. So what we end up with for Chaco is, low emission controls just on the one unit, unit 14, and I think that's reasonable.
Thank you, Member Ely.
So, Madam Chair, if there's no further discussion, I would move that somebody make a motion that it is proper to require installation of emission controls at the enterprise facilities. I don't think we have to name the 3 facilities.
Thank you for that, Member Ely. And so we're at the point where we can make a motion, and as your suggestion, I don't know if you want to pose the motion since you suggested grouping them all together, but I think that would be a good opportunity.
So I move that the board find that it is proper to require the installation of emission controls at all 3 enterprise facilities.
Thank you, Member Ely. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Garcia. With that, sir, I don't see any further discussion. Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on Member Ely's motion?
Yes. Member Ely,
Yes?
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Member Bitzer,
I vote yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Appreciate that. And that takes us on to page 5 of the hearing officer's report, if you're following along. And that takes us to question number 4. Is NMED's source screening Q/D threshold of 5.6 reasonable? And here we have on page 5 of the hearing officer's report a number of text of testimony and some references that we can utilize for our discussion. Would you like to open it up? Yes, Member Garcia.
Yes, to this point on the Q/D threshold that NMED chose for 5.6, whether it's reasonable or not, one of the points that stands out for me is that the states have a lot of discretion afforded by EPA, and various states chose various threshold values. NMED went through in the testimony to provide evidence as to why they landed on that particular threshold value, which I found compelling. So I understand there's other states that had higher values and lower values, but since states do have discretion, I would defer to the agency's expertise on choosing that threshold.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Yes, Member Hunker.
Yeah, and I believe, as we discussed before, some of the critique from the industries on this was comparing NMED's Q/D value for this phase of regional haze against the phase 1 values of other states. And I do think in NMED's response, they pointed out that this value is not out of line with several other states. So it looks like it's more consistent than the initial criticism would have indicated.
Thank you, Member Honker. Yes, Member Ely?
I just want to concur. I agree that NMED's choice of 5.6 Q over D is reasonable and well documented.
Thank you, Member Ely. Yes, Member Garcia.
If there's no other discussion, I would move that we determine that NMED's source screening Q over D threshold of 5.6 was reasonable.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Honker. There's no further discussion. Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on the motion?
Yes. Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes?
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
and Member Bitzer.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Member Hunker.
Yes.
All right, motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Appreciate that. And thank you, Board, for taking us through those questions and for the motion. We are now on to page 6, question 5. Was NMED required to consider visibility in determining control measures? And again, we have some text referenced in the hearing officer report, as well as page references and testimony. And the floor is open to any discussion regarding this question. Yes, Member Ely?
Yeah, I believe the department is not required to assess visibility in determining the effectiveness of individual control equipment. And I appreciate the quote that the department made and the hearing officer pulled out regarding the need to look at cumulative effects from the emission reductions required under the rule. So if you're looking at an individual control and the emission reductions related to that, it's likely imperceivable when considered in isolation. It's the combined impacts from those sources that really have the effect. So NMED is not required by law to look at visibility related to individual control equipment, and they did not do so here. They did look at visibility impacts with the Q over D as kind of a surrogate, but not for individual pieces of equipment to determine their impacts on Class 1 areas. So I say that no, NMED is not required to consider visibility benefits in determining control measures.
Thank you, Member Ely. Is there any other comments by board members? Discussion? Member Garcia?
Just one more addition to Member Ely's well-stated point is that, again, EPA gave flexibility to the states and to not use the visibility benefits. But one thing that NMED did conclude is that the reductions in SOx and NOx will probably translate into perceptible visibility benefits. But they didn't need to, they had the flexibility to not use visibility benefits.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Any other, yes, Member Hunker?
And I just noted in NMED's response, they pointed out that two of the neighboring states, Arizona and Colorado, did not consider visibility benefits on individual controls either. So I think that's significant.
Thank you, Member Hunker. Any other discussion? If not, love to entertain a motion regarding question number 5. Any board member would like to make a motion? Member Ely?
I move that the board finds that NMED is not required to consider visibility benefits in determining control measures.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Hunker. Thank you for the motion, Member Ely. If there's no other discussion on this question, I'd like to look to Mr. Lopez. Can you do a roll call vote on Member Ely's question?
Yes.
I mean, motion.
Member Ely,
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
and Member Bitzer.
I vote yes.
And Member Hunker.
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. With that, we're on to page 7, question 6. Did NMED use an appropriate cost threshold for assessing cost effectiveness? And again, thank you to Madam Hearing Officer. We have a number of highlights of verbal and technical testimony and written testimony and submittals. Does anybody want to discuss this one? Yes, Member Garcia.
Okay, we're talking about item 6, right?
Item number 6.
Okay.
Regarding cost effectiveness.
One, okay. So the cost effectiveness threshold value that NMED chose seems to be supported by their evidence they put in the record. I found no evidence that their threshold was of 10,000 a ton was flawed in any way. Various states had various values, and they supported their choosing that value. So I was not convinced by any evidence that there was a problem with that particular value.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Is there any other questions, comments? Yes, Member Ely?
I just also want to note that some of the examples given by industry regarding cost thresholds are from the first implementation period, not the second implementation period. And that's apples and oranges in my mind, and is not an adequate comparison. As Member Garcia noted, many other states have similar cost thresholds. The state is required to explain the reasoning for the threshold chosen, and NMED did just that.
Appreciate that comment, Member Ely. Any other board members have any other comments, input? And Member Hunker, I can't see you on the screen, so if you want to. Yeah, Luis, is Member Hunker still on the platform?
He's still on the platform, Madam Chair. His video is off.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Maybe he needed a break.
Yes. Is there any other comments, questions regarding this, this item? And I think to that point, after this item, we can take a 5-minute, 10-minute break. So just throwing that out there. With that, I'm wondering if anybody wants to do a motion. Yes, Member Garcia.
Yes, I move that we conclude that NMED used an appropriate cost threshold for assessing cost effectiveness, and it was supported by evidence they provided in the record.
Thank
I'll
you,
second
Member-
that.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Thank you, Member Bitzer, for your second. With that, Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on Member Garcia's motion?
Yes. Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes?
And Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
and Member Bitzer,
I vote yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. And as I shared a few minutes ago, why don't we take a, let's see, where are we? 5-minute break, will that work, or 10 minutes? Madam Court Reporter, what? Are you good? Okay. Let's do a 10-minute break and we'll come back at 2:20.
And how it would be cost prohibitive. They did not provide that information despite getting an extension on time on the hearing date and pre-hearing submittals. So this one isn't as clear cut to me.
Thank you, Member Ely. Is there any other discussion?
Just one more question.
Yes.
Mr. Garate, perhaps if the board decides to change a provision in the rule, how does that affect the SIP-R? So we're adopting both the rule and the SIP report. If we change something in the rule, do we just ask the department to go back and make revisions to the SIP-R?
Madam Chair, member, I think that's certainly an option. Another way is the board could try to do that themselves. If they recognize that a particular change in the rule, proposed rule, would have a change in the SIP, then you could go ahead and propose it. Now, if you feel like it's better for the department to do that, then by all means, that's an alternative. Does that help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Yes, Member Hunker.
Yeah, just a comment regarding facility-wide averaging, great concept. I don't think it would be wise for us to insert any language in the rule or the SIP revisions regarding it, because that sounds like a very complex thing. That would be a whole section of the rule. What is facility-wide averaging? How do you determine that? Where does it apply? Where doesn't it apply? I think it's a concept that in terms of implementing the rule, that the department could work with facilities on various approaches to complying, but I don't think we're equipped to insert any language regarding it in the rule or the SIP because I would be way over my head in a big hurry trying to describe what it is. So just a suggestion that we stay away from any language that we might include in a final decision.
Thank you for that, Member Hunker. Appreciate that. Yes, Member Bitzer.
Could we simply present that we state that facility-wide averaging should be allowed.
What are some thoughts? Member Ely?
I don't think so. I think we have to get very specific to each facility and each piece of equipment or pieces of equipment to do that. You know, there's a number of emission reductions being required at 24 different units in this rule that are being challenged. And I don't think, as Member Honker noted, I don't think it would be wise to just allow it without having further description about how that would be done and in what cases it would be applied to. And I'm not ready to go down that path myself.
Any other board member comments? Yes, Member Garcia.
Yeah, I think NMED brought up the issue with enforceability on this one, I believe. How this would be enforced may become an issue, so.
Yes, Member Ely?
I just, you know, the department has allowed site-wide averaging in other cases, you know, in other circumstances in their permits. I know that has been done. And, you know, maybe the site-wide averaging is worked out in the permits, but I think that Member Honker is correct. It's probably best not to propose it here, especially since Enterprise didn't actually make the case that site-wide averaging would not impact reasonable progress.
Thank you, Member Ely. And I do know on the, I think this is the NMED submittal or closing submittals on page 152, some of that discussion on NMED submittal regarding the facility-wide averaging to support the comments made by the board members. Is there any further discussion on this one, this question? I think it sounds like we're all leaning toward a motion here and looking to the board members for a motion. Take a shot at it. Member Garcia?
Okay, I would move that facility-wide averaging not be allowed for the enterprise facilities.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Bitzer. With that, look to Mr. Lopez for a roll call vote on Member Garcia's motion.
Yes. Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Member Garcia?
Yes.
Chair Sweden?
Yes.
Member Bitzer?
I vote yes.
And Member Hunker?
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, for the roll call vote.
May I?
Yes,
Just
Member
say,
Ely?
you know, had I had more information about how it would be enforced, how it would be implemented, you know, a complete revision of the rule to allow it, including the reporting requirements, et cetera, I would maybe more open to site-wide averaging, how it would affect reasonable progress, but we didn't get that. And so that is why I voted no. I voted to not allow site-wide averaging. Just wanted to explain my vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Member Ely. All right. Yes, Member Honker.
And in a similar vein, I would certainly encourage the department to work with all the regulated facilities and be open to considering various approaches to complying with the rule once it's finalized. But I think at least my vote was kind of addressing it in the rule or the SIP properly at this point does not seem to be something we should do. So that was my logic.
Thank you for that additional information, Member Honker. Appreciate that. If there's no further discussion, let's go to question number 8. Should the draft SIPR include Targa's monument facility? And this is on page 9 of the hearing officer's report. Anyone want to start the discussion? Member Ely?
Yeah, so at Monument, Targa makes the case that their current emissions at Monument are less than 10% of the 2016 emissions, which was the reporting year, for the last 5 years. And that had the department excluded the NOx and SOx emissions related to the redundant compression that they put in on their acid gas injection, that they would be under the 5.6. So prior to 2019, when they put in that additional control, they had a Q over D of 20.4. But what I don't see is what their Q over D would be currently. They state it would be below the 5.6, but I don't see those calculations anywhere. And then NMED makes the argument that, in part, that, if they go back and look at revised emissions data, that it's resource intensive to do that, that they've already gone out with consultation to the federal land managers and agreed on the set of sources for the second implementation period, so they shouldn't really be doing that anyways. This is a long way for me to say I'm somewhat sympathetic because I appreciate redundant compression on an acid gas injection well. That's what should be on those wells to prevent upsets like the one that happened to them in 2016. But I don't think there's evidence in the record to screen them out of the Q over D. So at this point, I do believe that the SIPR should include Targa's monument facility.
Thank you, Member Ely. Any other board members have comments regarding this question?
I just might add that, they were looking at 167 tons per year of NOx emissions from those 4 engines at Monument, and that, that matters. It's not the number 1 emission source for visibility at the closest class 1 area, but those emission reductions from those 4 engines do matter.
Thank you, Member Ely. Yes, Member Bitzer.
I'll move that the SIPR should include Targa's monument facility.
Thank you, Member Bitzer.
I'll
I'll
second.
second. Go ahead, Member Honker.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Honker. There any further discussion? If not, Mr. Lopez, could you please do a roll call vote on Member Bitzer's motion?
Yes, Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes?
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Member Bitzer,
I vote yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
And motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. All right, that takes us to question number 9 on page 10 of the hearing officer's report. Does the board have the authority to require replacement of existing units? Again, we have a number of text from written and written testimony, as well as verbal testimony and information in the record. Would anybody like to discuss this question? Yes, Member Garcia.
I think I stated this before, but as with most regulatory agencies, you don't usually require specifically how you meet the requirements. It's up to the company to decide how to meet the requirements. So there's no requirement to replace existing units. They just have to meet the requirements of the rule. If meeting the requirements of the rule requires a replacement, then that's what has to be done.
Thank you for that, Member Garcia. Yes, Member Ely?
And just to add to that, the department's own legal analysis concluded that federal law, regulations, and guidance gives the department and the board the authority to require replacement. That was in their most recent submittal. NMED also discussed this matter with EPA Region 6 staff, and they stated in their most recent submittal that EPA indicated that replacement is not outside the scope of the program. So even though the rule provides a lot of flexibility on how to meet the emission limits, it also sounds like the authority is there to require replacement.
Thank you for that, Member Ely. Yes, Member Bitzer.
Do we actually have to make a motion on this one? It seems fairly cut and dry. I was just wondering, ask of council, is this something we need to make a separate motion on?
Madam Chair, member, I think, unlike the other ones, this one has to be reworded. If depending on what the board decides, but I think what I'm hearing so far is that the board, the voices I've heard so far have said that the NMED hasn't required in the rule the replacement of equipment. And so I think the motion would be something along those lines, if that's what the board feels.
Thank you, Mr. Ugarte. Member Garcia.
Yes, I can appreciate that. I'll try to make a motion that works, and you can tell me if it does or not. So I would move that the board has the authority to require, and as NMED has the authority to require that the regulated community meet emission requirements. And if that means replacement is necessary, then the authority is there to require that.
I think that's fine.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Garcia, for your motion, and Member Bitzer for your second. Is there any discussion? No? All right. Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on Member Garcia's motion?
Yes, Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Member Bitzer,
I vote yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. With that, we will go on to question number 10. Does the Federal Natural Gas Act preempt state regulation of interstate natural gas pipeline engines that are FERC certified? And again, we're on page 10 of the hearing officer's report, along with question number 10. Yes, Member Garcia.
So for this one, I thought it was a little bit of a reach. I don't think that the regulation is interfering with FERC, FERC compliance. NMED requires compliance with the rule in accordance with the Air Quality Control Act and the authority under the Clean Air Act, and will not interfere with compliance with FERC.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Member Ely?
Yeah, I agree with that. I also agree that, however they decide to replace the compressors at Blanco A, El Paso Natural Gas will most likely have to work with FERC to get that done, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't put emission limits on those units.
Thank you, Member Ely. Is there any other comments regarding this? I just want to also note, I think similar to the vein of the previous discussion about requiring any regulated entity to do something in particular, but instead focusing on the emissions limitations of the rules and regulations. I think that's where we are on this question as well. Member, any board members want to propose a motion? Member Ely?
Sure. So I move that the Federal Natural Gas Act does not preempt state regulation of interstate natural gas pipeline engines that are FERC certified.
Thank you, Member Ely. Yes, Member Hunker.
I would amend that slightly. I would move, I would revise the motion to say that the board is not convinced by El Paso Natural Gas's argument that the Federal Natural Gas Act preempts state regulation of interstate natural gas pipeline engines.
I would second that. I think this is another one we need to word carefully. And I think you hit that. I would also look to council in case he wants to weigh in on that.
Madam Chair, Member Bitzer, I agree. I think the second proposed motion is more effective.
Could you restate that, please, Mr. Hunker?
Oh, okay. I would say, I would move that the board is not convinced by El Paso Natural Gas's argument that the Natural Gas Act preempts state regulation of interstate natural gas pipeline engines that are FERC certified. I think that wording we're not making a legal determination. We're just saying we're not convinced by that argument that there's an inherent inconsistency.
Yeah, I agree. I was just wondering if we should add something about air quality in there. Not all regulations, but state air regulations under the Clean Air Act. Would that be helpful?
Would that be something, Mr. Ugarte, that we might want to add to the motion?
Madam Chair, and Member Ely, it could be in the proposed motion, it said EPNG or El Paso Natural Gas's argument, so I think that's incorporated in that.
Okay.
Was it seconded already?
Okay, member, just point of order. So member, are we, is it member Hunker or member Ely's motion? Be member Hunker? All right, member Hunker, and then do we have a second? Was that you, member Bitzer?
Yeah, I seconded the motion.
Thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion? I think I appreciate the input, legal counsel Ugarte, and the clarity on the motion. With that, is there any further discussion? If not, Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on member Hunker's motion?
Yes, member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
And member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
member Bitzer,
I vote yes.
and member Hunker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Appreciate that. All right, with that, we will go on to number 11 on page 11. Should NMED's earlier determination under the ozone precursor rule that SCR at Pecos River units is not economically feasible control, economically feasible control? Is there any discussion on this that fellow board members would like to jump in? Yes, member Ely.
Yeah, so their argument is that under the ozone precursor rule, SCR at Pecos River was determined to not be economically feasible by the Air Quality Bureau back in 2023. I do want to note that Part 50, the ozone precursor rule, does require a number of details on how that economic analysis is to be done. And I don't know that this analysis was provided to the regional Haze team. We don't know that, it wasn't in the record. We don't know what the cost threshold that the department considered was. Was it $10,000 per ton as in this rulemaking? We weren't provided that information either. And since we don't have these details, I don't know that we can state that the AES under Part 50 should prevail. And I also want to make the point again that regional Haze is not ozone precursor. You know, regional Haze deals with visibility, ozone precursor deals with reducing ozone levels in the state. And so they have two separate functions. So I would anticipate that the economic analysis would also look different.
Thank you, member Ely. Is there any other discussion? I appreciate the additional summary that is also called out in some of the references in the hearing officer's report. I agree with your summary, member Ely. Yes, member Garcia.
I agree as well, and I would just add that determining feasibility comes under the purview of the Environment Department, and I would rely on their expertise to determine that, the feasibility of compliance with the current proposed rule. And I don't have any reason to, I don't have any evidence to show that they were mistaken in coming up with that feasibility analysis.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Those good points. With that, and if there's no further discussion, love to entertain a motion. Yes, Member Garcia?
Okay, I would move that NMED's earlier determination under the ozone precursor rule that SCR at Pecos River units is not economically feasible would not be appropriate. I don't know if that was a good one or not. I lost myself in the.
Legal counsel Ugarte, would you have any recommendations?
Madam Chair and Madam Garcia, just at the end, just should not control, I think is. that would be-
Okay, let me state that again. NMED's earlier determination under the ozone precursor rule that SCR at Pecos River unit is not economically feasible should not control for this rule.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Member Bitzer for your second. With no further questions, comments, or input, Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on Member Garcia's motion?
Yes, Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Swina,
Yes.
Member Bitzer,
I vote yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. That takes us to the next question, number 13. Should the board adopt any emissions limits for Pecos River or Blanco A? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think we
12.
missed 12.
Sorry. Question number 12, on page 11. Thank you, Member Hunker and Legal Counsel Ugarte. Should the assessment of cost effectiveness be performed using actual emissions or potential emissions? Again, we have some text from the record for our consideration as identified by Madam Hearing Officer Orth. Anyone want to jump in on some discussion? Yes, Member Ely?
I want to note that NMED states that they are using actual emissions. But because most of the effective units have annual operating schedules that vary significantly from one calendar year to the next, they use 6 years of operating data to determine the baseline. So they used operating data to determine what the BAE should be. And again, providing this approach gives the operator maximum flexibility so that they can ramp up to 100% load when they need to. So there's a benefit to them for that in that aspect. It is also necessary since during the development of the 4-factor analysis, none of the facilities provided comprehensive and representative emissions and operating data requiring NMED to use their best judgment in assessing these emissions. So they're not completely devoid of using actual emissions. They just had used their best judgment in integrating an operating component so that they can get a more realistic and conservative picture.
Thank you, Member Ely. Yes, Member Garcia?
Yes, I think NMED is well within the guidelines to use the 2016 data. And I also want to point out that when this process started, I think it was 2019, 2016 didn't seem that far away. It does now, but this has been ongoing for a long time. So since they're within the guidelines to use that data, I don't see a problem with using it.
Yes, Member Ely?
And just to add, El Paso Natural Gas, Target, and Enterprise all submitted inventory to the department certifying that the data was accurate. And so the department is using that data as they should.
Thank you for that additional note. And that's also documented in NMED's submittal. Is there any further discussion? If not, love to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, if I could just make a suggestion, if whoever's pondering the motion. In this instance, I think, based on the discussion that was just had, I think maybe a suggestion could be that the board finds that the NMED used actual emissions in performing the cost effectiveness.
Fellow board members, if anyone has any thoughts to legal counsel's point, if you want to entertain a motion or propose a motion, excuse me. Member Ely?
It might be a little broader than that and just say the board finds that NMED use the appropriate emissions data in assessing the cost effectiveness of controls.
If that's a motion,
I was going to second it, and then I'll call on council to see what he thinks of that as well.
Yes, counsel?
I think that's fine if that's the board's finding.
Yes. And so with that, Member Bitzer, just it kind of got choppy there. Are you seconding Member Ely's motion?
Yeah, I seconded it, and then I tailed that to asking council if he concurred with that as sufficient motion.
Yes. Thank you for that. Is there any further discussion points to be made on the motion? If not, Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on the motion?
Yes, my apologies, Madam Chair. Could we get a repeat on the motion itself?
Yes. Member Ely, could you repeat your motion?
The board finds that NMED used the appropriate emissions data in assessing cost effectiveness.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, for your question. And we have a second by Member Bitzer.
Okay, perfect. And Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Member Bitzer.
I vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut off Member Bitzer.
I vote yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Member Honker.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Appreciate that. Check me on my numbering here, but I think we're on number 13, page 11. Should the board adopt any emission limits for Pecos River or Blanco A? We do have two references here, one from El Paso and one from NMED's on this particular question. Is there any opening comments, discussion points, input? Member Ely?
I can start. Always happy to start. So the arguments made by El Paso for replacing the engines at Blanco A don't really show that replacement is not feasible. It's only not feasible if the company's preferred method of replacing those engines is followed, such as leaving the old engines in place and installing a new one at a higher speed instead of installing two smaller engines. They did not provide enough evidence to the board to find that replacement is not feasible. They could move those engines to another location, but declined to do so in part, or said that they could not do so because of safety concerns. But again, they don't provide sufficient evidence of that as well. There's a question regarding the distance to Mesa Verde, and they argue that this was miscalculated, but NEBD points out that the National Park Service specifically requested that Blanco A be considered in this second implementation period. So that's for Blanco. And for me, their arguments at Pecos River also fall flat. There is an argument over the cost estimates, but I believe that an NMED's estimate is legal and is based in the four-factor analysis, which was already provided to El Paso, was way back in 2019.
Thank you, Member Ely. Any other thoughts, input, comments, discussion? Member Garcia?
Yes, I do recall a lot of discussion about this particular issue, and I also asked questions. I forget the gentleman's name that testified for EPNG regarding the feasibility and their ability to put in new units. I have some sympathy for the problems they raised, but I don't think they showed quite enough evidence, concrete evidence, to show that it couldn't be done. I'm kind of wondering if the department may have some enforcement discretion down the road if indeed it proves to be infeasible. At this point in time, infeasibility and economic issues are different. It would cost a lot of money to do. I don't think it's infeasible, but I just wonder if the department would have some enforcement discretion if there's real problems that come up down the road in complying with this particular measure.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Any comments, input from the board members? Yes, Member Bitzer.
Maybe that Member Garcia's question is a question for council. In your estimation, would the department have some enforcement flexibility should this turn out to be a brick wall or infeasible?
Madam Chair, Member Bitzer, unfortunately, that's a question for NMED. I mean, I would think that they have some latitude, but I really couldn't speak authoritatively to that.
Do you have any thoughts, Member Ely?
The department always has enforcement discretion. Whether they exercise it or not is up to them.
Did you have some thoughts, Member Garcia?
Yes, thank you. I guess my question was a little bit more rhetorical. I guess I should be more clear to say that I don't think it's infeasible for them to do. And that the department is within their discretion to require it. So I don't see that there's a problem with them requiring it. They did have evidence in the record that why it should be required. I was only bringing up the point that I had some sympathy for the issues they brought up. That is something that the department can deal with down the road, but I don't think at this point in time it shouldn't be required.
Thank you, Member Garcia, for that additional input, and Member Ely.
Just question to Member Garcia, are you referencing the Blanco A or Pecos River or both?
Blanco A more. That's the testimony I recall, where they gave a fair amount of evidence as to the problems that would arise in trying to put in another unit.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Do you think we're at a point where we can have a motion? Feel comfortable with the motion, or would you like further discussion? Yes, Member Garcia.
Okay, having said all that, I would move that the board should adopt emission limits for Pecos River and Blanco A.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Garcia, and Member Ely, for your second. Is there any further discussion from fellow board members?
Just real quick, I note that where is it? Yeah, the engines out at the Blanco A compressor station are from 1953. They're pretty aged. That didn't come up in testimony at all, but as noted in the department's testimony, the useful life of a unit is subsumed in the cost analysis. So, but still, those engines are over 70 years old. That's all.
Thank you, Member Ely. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Lopez, would you please do a roll call vote on the motion?
Yes, Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Member Bitzer,
I'll vote yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Right, with that, we get to question number 14, which is the last on the hearing officer's report, page number 12. And that question is, do the negative effects of ammonia slip outweigh the benefits of NOx reductions? And again, we have EP El Paso arguments as well as NMED's arguments on this point. Does anyone want to begin discussions on this? Yes, Member Ely.
I was just going to say that I don't believe there is sufficient evidence to conclude that the negative effects of ammonia outweigh the benefits of the NOx emissions. And it wasn't just El Paso. Enterprise provided some arguments that the ammonia slip is more detrimental to visibility than potential NOx reductions. But Enterprise overestimated those ammonia slips because they included 2 SCR units, or SCR for 2 of the 3 plants, when only 1 plant is going to have is being proposed for SCR to meet the emission reductions, and that's Blanco.
Thank you, Member Ely, for starting our discussion. Is there any other discussion on this item? All right, Member Garcia.
Yes, I think I recall there being testimony that the manufacturer even discussed this, and I couldn't find, I went back and couldn't find it in the record, but I do remember some discussion that there was improvement in technology that meant that the ammonia was manageable and did not outweigh the NOx reductions.
Thank you, Member Garcia. All right. Yes, is there any additional discussion and input on this one? Yes, Member Ely.
Well, just noting that the department argued that proper design and operation will minimize those ammonia emissions and that the rule actually contains limits for those ammonia emissions as well.
Yes, I see that in the record as well. All right, is there, yes, Member Bitzer.
I would move that we find that the negative effects of ammonia slip do not outweigh the benefits of NOx reductions.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Bitzer for your motion and Member Ely for your second. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Lopez, could you do a roll call vote on Member Bitzer's motion?
Yes. Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Member Bitzer,
I vote yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. And that does take us to the end of the questions. And our next step will be going to look at the rule itself. So we're at 3:20, right about an hour. I know we came back, it's been 55 minutes, but I think this might be a good break time. And then we can delve into the rule language. All right, so why don't we come back at 3:30? But if we can come back online. All right. Good afternoon again to everybody on the platform, and hope that was a long enough break for everybody to get some oxygen into your legs and to come back. Appreciate everybody bearing with us through that task, but I think it sets us up for the next part of our task regarding the language and the rules and the SIPR. So with that, our thought was to, based upon our discussion here since the start of the deliberations, we have established a number of high-level decision questions that were resolved in terms of what our board and the board members have considered those questions as identified by Madam Hearing Officer's report. With that, I'm looking to the board if there's anything else outstanding beyond in your review of the material, if there's anything else that you would like to discuss prior to going to the rule language. Yes, Member Ely.
No, and having discussed the high-level important issues and not landing on any proposed changes to the rule, I suggest that we don't walk through the rule, but just move to adopt it in the SIP.
And just for clarification, that's the SIP revision, right?
That's correct.
All right. Yes, Member Hunker, what are your thoughts?
I agree with that approach, but I do have one issue with the rule language as we have it, and I could only find one copy of the rule language in the record, so I assume we're still dealing with the one that we received with the petition, or in that time frame. But the proposed rule has an effective date in section 20.2.68.5 of July 1st, 2025. And I don't think we as a board should be adopting a rule that has an effective date months before we take action on it. So in the states, in the board of the department's discussion of the sections of the rule, I believe it actually said that the rule becomes effective on the date it is published in the New Mexico Register unless a later date is otherwise provided in the rule. So, but I think we need to replace that date with a later date or on the date it's published in the register.
Just for clarity, oh, yes, Madam Hearing Officer?
Madam Chair, Member Hunker, typically, as the board wraps up its deliberations on a rule, it directs the petitioner to make whatever final formatting, edits, and other adjustments required by the State Record Center, which is where the rule must be submitted for publication in the register. And the petitioner obviously is not allowed to make substantial edits to the rule once the board has made its decision. But it's definitely understood that the board works with the State Record Center to do things like change the effective date or change the numbering of a section. For example, if you were to insert a section between 1 and 2, then 2 becomes 3, that sort of thing. So I think with that instruction, and Mr. Ugarte may also have an opinion about this, but that's the usual instruction I've heard.
Yes, Legal Counsel Ugarte?
Madam Chair and Madam Hearing Officer, no, I think that's exactly right, and I don't have anything to add.
Thank you, Legal Counsel Ugarte. With that, Member Hunker, does that help address your question and comment?
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, yeah, we can just include a direction to make the appropriate changes, which would include the effective date.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate you bringing up that detail and so that we get it on record in the discussion of addressing some of those, logistical revisions or formatting issues. And again, because we're dealing with the revision here and just wanting to make sure that we get all of those details on record. Other than that, Mr. Hunker or other board members, do you have any other questions, comments regarding details that we might not have discussed in the previous run through all the questions in the hearing officer report? Yes, Member Garcia.
Thank you. I don't have any comments regarding the rule, but I do want to make it clear to all the parties that the board does appreciate all the work that went into this, and by the department, by all the regulated community, by the conservation community. It's a huge amount of work. We don't discount the information that was provided whatsoever. We take it all into consideration very carefully, and we appreciate the information that was provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Garcia. And I echo that as well, for everybody that provided technical testimony as well as showed up during the hearing, as well as participating on the platform and here in person. Appreciate the engagement, because it allows for the board to consider multiple perspectives and also the information so we can make good decisions and go through the material. With that, I don't know if there's anything else. Member Ely?
Yeah, I know how hard everybody worked on this. It was a complicated rule. It took years to gather the data and to put the language in place and lots of back and forth. And I don't envy all the time you had to spend on this. And I know you're thinking about the third implementation period right now. Anyways, I would like to make a motion that the board adopt Part 68 and the revised state implementation plan for the second implementation period based on the evidence provided by the New Mexico Environment Department in their submittal.
Thank you for that motion. And before we proceed, I just want to check in with our legal counsel Ugarte. Does that seem like a sound legal motion and comprehensive?
Madam Chair, I do.
Thank you for that. And looking for a second.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Member Garcia. The floor is still open with a motion on the floor and a second for any further discussion regarding Member Ely's motion. Yes, Member Hunker.
Just with the understanding that appropriate updates will be made before publication, including the effective date. I think we had a good discussion on that. So we're on the record. So we should expect to see that with the final publication.
Yes, thank you for that, Member Hunker. Appreciate that discussion point, and we will do our best with our legal counsel and guidance here to make sure that we address any of those details in our motion, our subsequent tasks. With that, if there's no further discussion, I look to Mr. Lopez to do a roll call vote on Member Ely's motion.
Yes, Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes?
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Member Bitzer,
I vote yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, for that roll call. And with that, I just want to make sure, legal counsel and Madam Hearing Officer, should we do another motion to document and that any subsequent, or was that, we don't need a motion for that? Okay. All right. Is there a next step that we need to, anything else we need to consider today, legal counsel or Madam Hearing Officer?
I would just want to be clear that the statement of reasons that would be drafted for you and reviewed by Mr. Ugarte would include all reasons supporting your decisions today, as well as a number of proposed reasons submitted by the department on matters that were not contested, such as the basic science of visibility or what their public engagement process was, or whether they gave public notice, for example.
Thank you for that reminder, Madam Hearing Officer. I just want to read into the record to summarize that. So in addition to the arguments presented, some of those items the include, the board's authority to adopt rules, the department's jurisdiction, an overview of regional Haze program requirements, public notice requirements, the procedural background in this matter, stakeholder coordination and engagement, the fundamentals of visibility and the visibility conditions in New Mexico's Class 1 areas, among other things. And this is something that was supported in the record and in the submittals, testimony, written and verbal record. Board members, did I capture everything in that summary? Okay. And Madam Hearing Officer, and legal counsel Ugarte, following our task today and our decisions and deliberation and in our decision, we will need to have, of course, the draft statement of reasons to be considered by the board. And so I don't know if we want to go over that schedule today, or do we want to, because I think we were talking about having that by the end of December. Is that correct, Madam Hearing Officer? Is that a timeline that will suffice for both your schedules?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
And that was a yes for our Madam Hearing Officer. So we do have a date of early January for another board meeting regarding a rulemaking deliberations. So if we have that if we have the statement of reasons for this deliberation and decision by the end of December, then the board can consider the statement of reasons at the deliberation prior to deliberating on the Clean Transportation Fuels Program, which is scheduled tentatively for January 8th. And there will be an official notice for that deliberation meeting. With that, please, board members, legal counsel, Madam Hearing Officer, if I missed anything, I'm open to making sure that we're comprehensive in our meeting today. Did I get everything?
Sounded wonderful, thank you.
Okay. And legal counsel Ugarte?
I concur.
Okay. All right. Yes, Member Ely.
I move we adjourn.
Let's discuss the next meeting. Is it the same?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Before we adjourn, we do have, if we're done with EIB 24-49, our deliberations, we can move on to agenda item number 4, which is our next meeting and any other business. So we do have, oh, yes. Okay. Hold on one second. Legal counsel Ugarte has a item he's following up prior to us going to the next item. So one more item or one more point of discussion for EIB 24-49 deliberations. I'll turn it over to Legal Counsel Ugarte.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board notes that NMED did submit several errata updates recently, and the board will factor those into the final submission.
Thank you for that highlight. And just again to reiterate, I know I looked at those and it was referenced in some of our discussion throughout our deliberation at the beginning in particular. So we did note that, just for the record. Other than that, is there any other reason why we can't go on to our next agenda item? We good?
I don't think so, Madam Chair.
Okay. Let me double check here. We good? We good? Okay. All right, so I think Member Ely, you started, oh. What's it?
I apologize, Madam Chair, members of the board. Maybe I missed it. I didn't hear a separate adoption of the SIP revision.
It was in the motion that Member Ely put forth.
I missed that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Do you want to continue on, Member Ely, with this next agenda item with adjournment?
Yes, please.
So you move to adjourn?
Okay, we're ready now?
We're ready.
I move that we adjourn for the day.
Thank you, Member Ely.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Hunker, for your second. And again, thank you, everybody, for your time and your effort and coming to our board meeting and our hearing and our deliberations today. Appreciate everybody's engagement. And it's been a good process. With that, I look to Mr. Lopez to do a roll call vote on Member Ely's motion to adjourn.
Yes, on adjournment, Member Ely, how do you vote?
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Member Bitzer,
I'll go yes.
and Member Hunker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lopez, and I hope everybody has great rest of the afternoon and evening and have safe travels from here to your homes. Thank you.